In 2009, Simon Sinek gave a TED Talk that went viral on the internet. It was entitled, "Start with Why." I want us to listen to a short clip of this talk and imagine that he's not just talking about businesses and business leaders, but talking about us as the church.
As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one?
In the first message of this brief series, I talked about the truth that God provides our initial unity as His people. Unity flows out of who God is, what God says, and what God does. He is the source. And my guess is that most all of us could talk about what unity is and that unity is what we're about. In this message, I want to communicate the idea that unity is worth our work to keep it. Psalm 133:1 says, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity." And our part is to dwell together. And Lord willing, next time I'd like to talk about how we do that together. But today I think we need to find our why. Why do we do what we do? To do that, let's go to Ephesians 4, verses 1 to 3, and then verse 13 as well. They say, "Therefore I, the prisoner of the Lord, implore you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling with which you've been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, showing tolerance for one another in love, being diligent to preserve the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace." And then verse 13, "Until we all attain to the unity of the faith, of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Christ." I want us in these next few minutes to see how Paul answers the why of this big idea. Here it is. Let's live up to our calling together. Why? Well, number one, because God is the one who's actually calling us. Verse 1 again, therefore I, the prisoner of the Lord, implore you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling with which you have been called. This is the second time that Paul has mentioned being a prisoner for the Lord. For Paul, God's calling is worth being in prison. There's something very powerful about a testimony from prison where your life is at stake. I believe that Paul wants to put that sort of power behind these words, basically saying, what I'm about to say is worth it. And here he has both the right and the authority to command them, but he really is walking alongside these believers, this church, pleading with them to harmonize their walk with their talk. It's not that we're worth so much. It's that our calling is of immense worth. What does call mean to Paul? Well, he doesn't always use the word call, but he has already spoken of it in chapter 1, verse 4, where he says, God chose us for himself before the world was created. In verse 5, he says, he predestined us to be his children. Verse 7, that same chapter, he sent Christ to atone for all our trespasses. And then verse 13, he sealed us with his Holy Spirit to preserve us forever. And certainly in Ephesus, they were called to live in unity as Jews and Gentiles in the church. There are other places in Paul's writing where we're all called to belong to Christ, called to be saints, called according to his purpose. I don't know if we realize how huge this is, because for about 2,000 years, the Jews had been called to be separate, to be set apart for God's purposes and plans. Laws, signs, promises had been given for about 20 centuries. The Jews are the chosen people of God. And now, in Christ, the call has gone out and is still going out to all nations, every tribe and tongue. And you and me. How amazing is that? Well, one preacher makes this point. He says, a person's calling sets the standard for their conduct. The higher the calling, the higher one's conduct must be. And then he gives this example. The law of the land sets a minimal standard of conduct which all are obliged to obey. Well, then certain jobs and vocations set the standard of conduct at this minimal level. But then when a nominee for the position of Supreme Court Justice, for example, they're being considered for a position, he or she is expected to maintain a higher standard of conduct. Inappropriate behavior toward the opposite sex or racially prejudiced comments would be cause for a serious investigation, as we have witnessed in recent months and years. Friends, there is no higher calling than for us to be the church over which Christ is the head and through which God brings glory to himself. Paul has said it over and over in his letters from prison. Live in a manner worthy of the Lord, worthy of his gospel. Let's live up to our calling together. Why? Because God is the one calling us. Secondly, because the stakes are so high. Let's look at verses 4 through 6. There was one body and one Spirit, just as also you were called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. This seems to be kind of a summary statement of what Paul has laid out in some detail in this letter. For example, in chapter 2, verse 15, he says, those who were once far off, the Gentiles, have been brought near by the blood of Christ and made into one new man. The next verse he says that Christ reconciled both, that's both Jew and Gentile, in one body to God through the cross. And then a couple of verses later, he says, both have access in one Spirit to the Father. I like what Tim Keller says about this passage. He says, "Don't insult the gospel and don't insult yourself by thinking of Christianity mainly as being nice people. You're not just nice. Becoming a Christian means you become new. You're alive, and you have the life of the Trinity in you. There's this great power that has come into your life, and you're awake. You're seated in the heavenly places. You're raised up." And these verses don't just describe the height and the unique oneness of our call in the church. They also point to the implications for every person on earth. You see, the fact that there is only one God and only one Christ and only one faith is the foundation for mission outside the church. That's why this gospel message must be proclaimed to all creation, to every people group. Jesus himself prayed this very thing in John 17, his high priestly prayer. Starting with verse 20, he prayed, "I'm not praying only on their behalf," that's his 12 disciples, "but also on behalf of those who believe in me through their testimony, that they will all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I am in you. I pray that they will be in us, so that the world will believe that you sent me. The glory you gave to me, I have given to them, that they may be one just as we are one, I in them and you in me. That they may be completely one, so that the world will know that you sent me. And you have loved them, just as you have loved me." Friends, God's glory and his mission are at stake. During the 6 years that Laura and I were in Kurdistan, we worked with a team of people who had a disciple multiplication strategy. The idea is that the church will be multiplied if, after leading 2 people to Christ, for example, I begin to train them not only to be disciples, but to also lead 4 others to Jesus and train them to do the same, and on and on. But over the years, we hit wall after wall of distrust. There are a number of reasons for this in Kurdistan, but regardless, the gospel won't multiply without trust, and therefore without unity. When the gospel stops at one generation, that's one person here and one person here and one person here, and they are all just connected to me, they're not connected to each other and they're not reaching out to others, the church's growth is stunted. The stakes for unity are so high. Oh, brothers and sisters, let's live up to our calling together, because God is the one calling, and because the stakes are so high, and because we can't reach the goal alone. Well, what is God's goal for us? We heard it in verse 13, "Until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Christ." One more thought from Tim Keller as he explains this verse well, I think. He says, if you're immature, you're infants. That's plural. But if you're mature, you're a person. And that's singular. In other words, the more you become one, you become like him. That is Jesus, the head of the body. There is just one body, and it's us. All of us who have placed our trust in Jesus alone to save us. It's not just about you and me individually. It's about all of us together. This is what Paul prayed in chapter 3, 16 to 19. He said, I pray that he would grant you," that's the Ephesian believers, "according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ which surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled up to all the fullness of God." If you want to see a little bit of a horror show, search online for pictures of a baby with an adult man's head. It's frightening. It's just not right. But people have kind of, photoshopped this stuff together. The reason I mention it, it's a symbol that I think of when I think of the church these days, especially the North American church. God's goal for the body of Christ is for us together to be growing up into our head, which is Christ. Jesus is in perfect union with God. He perfectly obeyed God. He was in intimate communion with God. He was the perfectly mature man. That's our head. And this is the union, the obedience and the intimacy that God is calling us to. And Paul says that we cannot reach that goal alone. We need each other for all of us to grow up into Him. Chapter 4, verses 15 and 16, but speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all aspects into Him who is the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body, being fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. You and I will not grow unless we are immersed in a community of people who have this growing balance of truth and love in our speaking. Let's live up to our calling together, because God is the one calling, because the stakes are so high, because we can't reach the goal alone. This really isn't a how-to message. By God's grace, that will come next. But I've been thinking about some ways to respond to this word. Unity is given by God. Maturity is God's goal for us. And preserving our unity in Christ is the way for all of us to reach that goal together. Well, if unity is so important to God, shouldn't it be one of our top priorities as well? I want to encourage us, alongside the truth of God's Word, to pursue unity with God's family above everything else. Jesus prayed for our unity in His last recorded prayer for us, as we read a few minutes ago. I challenge us to pray for unity in every prayer that we pray, because unity is worth it. Maturity is worth it. Our calling is worth it. And Jesus is worth it.